Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Feedback Friday. This is where Tim and I take a look at resumes and portfolios and help you iterate on whatever objectives you have based on your career growth in mind. A couple of housekeeping items for you. We do this every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also, everything is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube today. There's a link in the chat that's way up there, but I'll also add another link in the chat right now. The benefit is if you're invited up on stage, you don't have to take any notes. You can just always go back and review the recording. The consequence is if you have anything sensitive that you don't want to share with the greater world, your phone number on your resume, for example, you'll either want to censor that first or show a different document. Some sort of solution there, right? Beyond that, I think those are all the housekeeping items for today. Tim, anything I'm forgetting to talk about?
Nate and I are also interested in helping designers grow with AI and to become a little bit more proficient and fluent in how to use AI tools and staying relevant in general inside the growing and adapting field of technology. And if that's something you're interested in, make sure to let us know at the end of our Feedback Fridays. We've been transitioning to kind of Q&A slash kind of a deep dive on a particular AI topic. And we find that that's been helpful and interesting to people. And if you're one of those who's interested, let us know. So otherwise, I think that is it, Nate.
Excellent. First on the list, we've got gypsophila, who we were just unable to speak with, I think, last week. Or maybe it was the week before. But I'm stoked to see them back on the list today at the number 1 slot.
Let me go ahead and get the stream ready.
And if you're wondering where you are on the queue, there's another video feed below us, left of us, whatever our orientation is. That other video feed has the queue, and that's live. So you're welcome to go on there and see information about Tim and I and the stream as well. But also who's up on the queue next.
There should be a stream here now, Nate. Is that so?
Is so.
Okay, then let's dive in. So your first person is Jill.
Gypsophila is, I think, how one pronounces that.
I'll invite you to the stage. Gypsophila, welcome to the stage. I'm going to open your portfolio in the background. If you'll go ahead and introduce yourself to us briefly. Some of the things that we're looking for is a little bit about maybe your industry, who you are, if you have any specific like calling cards, things that make you unique or stand out in your perspective. And then additionally, maybe what your goals are, such as, are you trying to get hired right now? Are you being discovered organically online, networking, finding a new job, what have you?
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Teresa. I am a UI UX designer. I have a background in graphic design. Um, in my UI UX experience, I kind of started on my own. I worked on a few projects as a freelancer, but I never worked under like a senior designer or a design lead. So in that area, I'm a little bit confident. So I want to get my portfolio reviewed. I am in between job seeking. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
So a UI UX designer based in Toronto, who's currently looking for a new role. And in your own expression, you maybe haven't had the opportunity to be mentored by senior designers or someone else in the past. And maybe right now, what would you say the goal of your portfolio is? Today, do you feel like you have a very strong portfolio? Maybe you're looking for feedback on your landing page or your positioning, a certain case study.
I would like to get feedback on the overall of my like how my portfolio feels, and maybe it would be nice if you have time to look at one case study, because I never had professional feedback for my portfolio, so I'm not too confident.
Okay. Well, we will help give you some confidence today because I'll just say right away, it looks very clean. We have a good navigation bar at the top. You do have we call this a positioning or like a value proposition statement, a value position statement, if you would. And so we have up here, Teresa is a UI UX designer based in Toronto. Nate, it might be worth us taking a quick pause to talk about what the goals or like what a portfolio should accomplish for someone in Teresa's positioning where she is looking for a new job right now.
Yeah, I love that mindset. Teresa, I've got a question for you. I might have missed it as you were talking with Tim. Is your goal, you mentioned you're between jobs. Are you looking for an FTE position somewhere?
Yes, right now I'm working as a graphic designer, but I do want to transition into a role that just focuses on UI or UX.
Got it. Not between jobs. Understood. So working as a graphic designer, attempting to elevate to more product design, UX design, UI design. Understood. And then what position elevation are you looking to target? Junior, mid, senior? Do you have an idea?
I do have a few experience in like product design, but like I said, I worked it on my own as a freelancer, so I never worked under a experienced designer to lead me. So I feel like I would fit in the um, junior or mid role.
Understood. There's an interesting nuance to what you're describing, and it sounds like you're diagnosing yourself as fitting best under junior. How do you feel about yourself? Like, are your goals to position yourself more elevated than junior?
Yes, maybe a little more than junior, but I'm just not too confident because all my project I've been working on them on my own.
Understood. Cool. Let's do this then, Teresa. Let's take a look at a general overview of your website, and then Tim and I will attempt to diagnose where we think your website is currently positioning you, and then you can validate whether or not that positioning is accurate. And then we'll go from there if that works for you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Tim, I see you drawn on your whiteboard there, and you're attempting to differentiate between the different titles there. Why don't you go ahead and start that conversation?
Yeah, so I do want to acknowledge that if you're in a position right now, where you're in graphic design, if we were to look at a scale or kind of like a line chart in this case of all the different roles and their titles, categories and roles and titles are all kind of fake because they're all human based. But generally, when people talk about these different titles, there's often graphic design, UI design, UX design. There is a sense of like increasing scope of those roles and differences in where they overlap. And so, for example, a graphic designer might have a lot of overlap with UI design, and a UI designer might have a lot of overlap with graphic and UX design. And so these become types of secondary skills. And so if I was looking for someone transitioning from graphic to UX, some of the things I'm going to be looking for in terms of like a UX designer would probably be an understanding of research and of having a strong visual design background. And I would imagine being able to basically show very strong UI design. If you notice, if you were to assume graphic research roles and also visual design roles, you're going to land right in the middle at that UX junction. So I just wanted to point out that as I look at this, if I was going to dive into some of your case studies, these would be the things that for me qualify as being part of whatever you call UI or UX design, is having a strong balance of visual design, but also knowing how to look at things from an analytical perspective and being able to back decisions by data. And from that perspective. So this is not to intimidate or be unfriendly, just letting you know that when we evaluate this, this is probably the general overview of where we want to go. For a UX designer, skills across research and UI. You can lean a little bit more towards product as well. You notice that product starts to kind of burgeon into business as well. This is kind of one of the reasons why we call, why is UX and product the same thing? And there's some confusion there, but not the point. Nate, I feel like that's all I'd love to say about that as we kind of just pique our interest into Teresa's Teresa's thing here.
Yeah, was there, circle back to some of Teresa's goals. Why were you mentioning about the different categories here?
Yeah, so when we talk about a portfolio and what a portfolio accomplishes, there's kind of a sense of this introduces who you are to the world. People meet you via your portfolio, and people come to your portfolio with their own goals. And this could easily become a very long conversation about who exactly are these people coming to your website. But in general, people want to hire because they have business problems, business goals, business problems. And so understanding what is the problem that they're trying to solve, and then mapping that to the type of role that they're looking for. If someone has a business problem that's solved by a UX designer, it's often best to speak in terms of this problem that they're facing and show how you address the problems that UX designers can often solve, and demonstrating your rationale and your process as you move through those. So mapping it back to our question then of like, what should a portfolio do for someone? It needs to introduce who you are, and then it also needs to show how your process of solving problems maps directly to solving the business problems that someone interested in hiring an employee or another team member can attach this to you and understand you to be possibly the world's greatest UX designer of all time. That would be the goal, right? And so visual design, when you look at this perspective, especially for UX designers and people who need to show a thorough process and how they solve these business problems, the visual design becomes quite secondary to the copywriting and the way that you present yourself in terms of words, presentation, storytelling, and bringing people along. So as we look at your portfolio, we'll try to be as objective as possible and just basically measuring, are you showing enough thought and process exposure or exposition that we can understand and map directly that, yes, Teresa does solve the business problems that UX designers solve. And that would make her appealing. This is chicken scratch up here, but that would make her appealing to someone who's looking for a UX designer. Now, you might want to check me, Nate. Hopefully everything I said makes sense, especially Teresa, if you're following or not following on this.
Yes, I'm following. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Teresa, let's look at your portfolio here. Oh, Tim, do you have more to say?
No, I do not. Well, I always do, Nate, but I probably shouldn't.
I understand. All right, Teresa. Cool. Let's go back to your goal. You're looking for overall feedback of your website. And then Tim and I will attempt to review this and see like where it's positioning you currently. And I've grabbed a look across the site as Tim has been talking here. You're doing a lot of things really well. And I want to commend you for the amount of effort that you've put in here. We're going to dive into some of the optimizations fairly fast, but I want you to know that even though we're skipping past like the commendables that you have done, know that we see the amount of effort you've put in here and you're doing a lot of stuff really, really well. So don't think that we're not seeing that. Tim has talked about a couple of things here. So he talked about the differences between graphic design, UI design, UX design, the elevations that they are attempting to solve business problems. So now let's talk about who are the target audiences for your portfolio. There are typically 3 target audiences for your portfolio: recruiters, hiring managers, and then peers. If we just take a look at recruiters, they're mostly interested in general high-level aspects about who you are as a designer, with a goal of validating that the job description A that they have lined up can be matched to candidate A, in this case, you. So their tactics typically involve a lot of key phrase matching. For example, they'll take some of the vocabulary off of job description A, and then they'll look at Teresa's portfolio and say, Teresa, can I see a lot of the same lingo here? Am I finding a lot of the same factual objectives that are also listed on the job description? They don't have deep nuance of like what UI design or UX design is. Their goal is just to find candidates that they can pass on to the hiring manager for the future filtration. So a bunch of things we can do for them, a couple of tactics that we can apply to assist with that particular target audience. You've got the value prop on the very top here. Teresa is a UI UX designer based in Toronto. So you're already stating who you are and then what your job titles are that you're looking to apply for. That's super assistive for recruiters. The value prop itself, that's about where the value prop, where the value of that value prop ends for most folk, because the rest of that value prop we could copy and paste on like Tim's portfolio and it still makes sense, right? So the goal of the value prop is to also describe who you are, what you do, what's your differentiator, like who's your target audience, and then how you can benefit that target audience. And that's real tough to do if you're like entering the market. If you're fairly new to the industry and you don't have a target audience just yet or a lot of differentiation, real tough to do, easy to say on paper, tough to actually accomplish. So there's some opportunity there. With a goal of doing like a general portfolio overview, I'm going to move on, but know that if you want to talk about value props more in depth in the upcoming future, happy to talk more about that. So now there's target audience 2, which is our hiring managers. And hiring managers care way more about how you go about solving business problems, what's your process of thinking, how you break problems down into smaller pieces. They're going to go right to a case study. They'll go to your homepage. They'll find a case study that is either most relevant to their own industry, or they'll click on the first one. And as they're skimming through a case study, they're looking for what's the problem you're trying to solve, and then how did you go about solving that problem? And there are a couple of things we can do on your case studies as well. Very quickly, if we go back to recruiters just for a second, at the very top of the case study, we can add some housekeeping shenanigans. Think of it like an SEO strategy, but for recruiters. So when I say housekeeping, I'm talking about like, what was your role with the project? What was the timeline? What was the industry? What tools did you use? Like really high level things that we can easily match to a job description. So just having that list at the top of this case study, that's going to help recruiters a lot. For hiring managers, they care less about that. They care more about how you go about solving problems. And that's the entirety of the rest of the case study at play. So they want to know what's the problem you're trying to solve. How did you go about solving that problem? So optimization for you here, there isn't a clean description on what the problem is that you're trying to solve. It might be here in the project overview, but I haven't read it in depth yet. If you're able to just like quickly draw that out, just a real fast problem statement, here's the problem and here's the causes that the problem is causing, then the rest of the entire case study can go about like, okay, I'm reading this section in the case study, and I know that's important because it goes back to solving that problem that Teresa listed at the top. Without the problem, the rest of the case study doesn't have any context. So like we lose a lot of that audience very quickly. And then just to quickly summarize the third and final target audience, these are peers. These are future folk that you could potentially work with. And we target them in a couple of interesting ways. So a typical flow is a job description gets posted on LinkedIn or wherever, 1,000 candidates apply, and then the filtration process occurs. And then the hiring manager narrows it down to the top 20 candidates. And then he goes to his coworkers, his peers, and he says, hey, peers, here's the top 20 candidates. Who should I interview first? So now it's those folk that we're trying to target. And the best way to target them is actually, like, they'll care a little bit about your case study. They'll care a little bit about your homepage, value prop, and all that. They care way more about your about page. And they want to answer questions like, are you enjoyable to work with? If I share a cubicle wall with you for 8 hours a day, are you going to make my life miserable? Like really personable questions, right? So that's where the about page comes into play. Your about page is currently doing a lot of stuff. It's got a lot of content on there, but it's more resume focused than about. One of the rhetorics I have on these calls, feel free to lean into your about page feeling more like a dating profile, as silly as that sounds. Like photos of you, your interests, your hobbies, like these are all things that if I am going to suggest and refer Teresa to this job, I want to make sure they're enjoyable. That's the filtration that you're trying to accomplish here. And then these peers are also, we're targeting them also in another interesting way. And that is by far the most effective method of getting a job at a company isn't through cold applying, it's through referrals. So we want to make sure your about page also captures the possible referral audience because they'll care much more about your about page than the other stuff as well. So we're like trying to maximize your most effective job application strategy, if that makes sense. Teresa, I threw a lot at you right there. How are you feeling about all of that so far?
Thank you. Really appreciate all the feedback and insight. I think it was super helpful. I learned a lot from hearing your perspectives.
Overall, Teresa, we haven't like really dove in depth. We haven't gone in depth into your portfolio like visually just yet. Tim and I have both been looking at it on the side here. I would say that you're correct in the sense that your portfolio is currently positioning you for that of a junior level candidacy into an application. And there are nuances for why I think that's the case. The quickest one, I think, is that your case studies are, I think there are opportunities in two different ways. One is your case studies should lean more into metrics and impact, as in here's the business problem that I'm trying to solve and here's how I measured success along the way. And that's a really easy thing to say when very difficult to do if you're like working on personal projects without business requirements, right? So that's tough to do, but we can certainly talk more about that. And then the second one is that your case studies are following a very linear approach to UX design. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. It just happens to also coincide with folk who are entry level into the marketplace. So those two things I think are positioning you for junior level candidacy. Is that okay with you? Is that feeling like what you were thinking as well?
Yeah, that's good.
How are you feeling, Teresa? Go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say, if you wanted to elevate this and go to the next level in terms of content writing to support a lot of what Nate has been talking about, it would actually be to draw some of these out longer, like to stretch, not like stretch them out unhealthily, but like to add more content here so I understand more. For example, you have a section here called Project Overview. We love a good project overview, but maybe you could break down the project overview into a problem and to a solution. And then you could even draw that out into an impact. And it's not that you necessarily need to have a section labeled problem or a section labeled solution or a section labeled impact. It's just including those as part of how you introduce and talk about something in terms of not just what you have done, but what you're solving for, where you headed with that solution, and then were you successful or not. And including that really helps a project overview feel stronger. You also have these sections like user research. And even actually it's that you have a user research section and then you kind of have a lot of images. And I think that this is a missed opportunity to really make each of these images tell basically its own little mini story. If you were to think about every single image here as an interview question, how would you explain this whole survey report inside of an interview or helping someone fully understand everything they're looking at? And so introducing the information about the survey report, what motivated you to do the survey the way you did, were there any constraints, what were the insights you were finding, what became your opinion on it, what informed your intuition as you went through this, and then what did you decide to do with that? And then you start talking about research-based personas. And now take the time to explain to me maybe every single part of this. Like you have this representative Sonia, talk about Sonia more, talk about this person, their core thesis here of meeting new people, talking about their goals. Each of these could almost be its own little mini section, honestly. Like you could have a section talking about just their goals. How'd you decide their goals? How'd you decide their needs and motivations? Especially since you have two here, so you could talk about both of them a little bit and really explain to me as a reader that you understand the process of creating these personas. Not that you've just created them, but that you're valid in how you approach creating them. And I could say very similar for almost all of this, right? Even task flow, even wireframes, high fidelity wireframes. Like you've stuck these in here, and it's almost like a disservice to yourself that you're not taking more time to celebrate or even explain and help me understand each part of this, right? You've stuck this in front of me, hoping that I'll understand and appreciate the value of these wireframes here, when you haven't done anything to help me appreciate or feel that work or the craft that you've put in here, how you approached it. So those are the kinds of things that can help elevate case studies from a position of maybe showcase to persuasive argument that is really process oriented and will speak to people who are going to decide, does this person deserve an interview? Does this person solve business problems? Can I trust this person to come into my team and spend my money wisely?
So would you say I could make my case study a lot more and a lot content, a lot more texts? Because I always thought if my case study is really text heavy, and then people won't be interested in reading it, they'll just skim through the images, and like that's why I think I used mainly images and not a lot of paragraphs.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something. It's not mean, but you're kind of putting this thing as we shouldn't make them too long just in case they're not interested in reading it. The reality is though that they're probably already not interested in reading it. almost no one wants to read case studies. So the goal is to make them as informative as possible for people who need to spend time on sections, but to also make them as skimmable as possible. And right now, if I skim through this, I see all the content, but I have no anchor for it. If I come across your wireframe, it's like, oh yeah, this is the one section that I'm actually interested in learning about is how you wireframe. And there's nothing here to tell me about your process or your opinions or how you even approached it, what the circumstances were. So with that regard, it is often, we find it's often most successful to have well documented and labeled sections with supporting text that for someone who is an avid reader, they can read it and they can look at it, but also understanding that each section needs to be at least a little bit durable on its own, that can carry its own weight, that if someone did scroll through here and they saw something they liked, they'd be able to understand it. What would you say about that, Nate?
I love the rhetoric here. I agree with all of that. Teresa, I am linking another portfolio in the chat. This is one that we've reviewed in the past. This is Tim and I's go-to example in regard to a portfolio that, like, if we were to suggest, here are the top 7 things a UX design portfolio should do, this portfolio does only those 7 things and nothing else. So it's a good barometer for, like, this is just a generic barometer of success. And then if you want to accentuate with other things, you totally can. Teresa, how you feeling? I feel like we threw a lot of theory at you. Do you feel like you've got some actionables that you can potentially take away? Then would love to see you back in the future and see how you've modified your portfolio in the meantime. Is that okay?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for your reviews and feedback. I think I have a lot to take away today, and I'm looking forward to update them in my portfolio.
Right on. Teresa, appreciate the time. Appreciate you being willing to hop on here first thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tim and Nate.
Tim, next on the list is Rahul, if that is how one pronounces it. Rahul Kashyap. If you're out there, Rahul, stick your hand up.
No longer here.
Oh, they've taken off already. Quad, you're just that
Yes,
much
they have.
closer to getting your thing reviewed today. Next on the list is Arazin.
Arazin, you're up. Now, before I click this PDF, I just want to validate you're okay with this PDF being shown everywhere. This is not a sensitive PDF at all.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, cool. Will you go ahead and introduce us to you? First of all, what we should call you, and then maybe a little bit about the type of designer you are, the market that you're in, specialties that you're using or kind of leaning on, and then some of your goals for today. Is this about you're trying to get hired? Maybe you're going freelance. There's like an organic discovery or networking you're trying to accomplish. And then when we're talking with you today, if you want us to focus on a particular case study, maybe your thing overall, if you're in the middle of transitioning this somewhere, just help us know where to focus.
Great. Hi, I'm Ahmed. Been designer for several years, 5 years. A little bit more than that, but it was just kind of like noodling around in the startup world. But I guess like 5 years, like in a professional setting. Been working for a university hospital, so I have several years of like experience working in healthcare and education. So trying to, I guess, like position myself as like a designer that's like, aiming towards, I guess, like good causes, like those things. And really trying to, I guess, like, so I'm looking to get hired right now, really trying to get some insight as to like my overall portfolio. Like, I had to like make this PDF like very haphazardly, because got laid off very unexpectedly. So now I have to redo my website. It's gonna take some more time, but kind of like made this PDF as a way to like wrap my head around my experience, and like making it into a slide deck would help me, I guess, like organize my thoughts better. So kind of want some, I guess, like initial impressions, like overall, like how easy is it to scan? If you were to dive in, is there anything like worth diving into? So I'm positioning myself as kind of like a mid-level to early senior level designer. So yeah.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. I would just comment, my heart definitely hurts for you and the others who are probably in this call who have also experienced unexpected changes in employment status. I've been there as well. I think many people have also been there, and it does get better. Things can still work out and improve, but we'll be happy to support you any way that we can. It's funny that you bring a slide deck because our friend Nate Bauer here has some strong opinions about how slide decks and PDFs, their relative effectiveness and how they can perform very well when curated the correct way. So it'll be interesting to see as we look at this, maybe where you can prove that and maybe where things diverge a little bit in your specific use case. Nate, where do you want to start with this?
Well, first off, how do I pronounce your name? What should I call you?
Ahmed.
Ahmed, pleasure to talk with you.
Yep.
I missed a couple of foundational things. Did you say, I heard that you were you're aggressively looking for a job and you were rebuilding your portfolio currently. Is all that correct so far?
Yes.
What's the elevation? What's the title you're looking to apply for?
UX designer or product designer. Yeah.
And what elevation? Junior, mid, senior?
I would say mid-level.
Cool. Okay.
I have mid-level experience, but could always position yourself higher. Right?
I'm with you.
But,
I'm totally following. Makes sense. And then what's your objective with the slide deck?
Get it's kind of like a PDF version of my portfolio. Just get like a overall convey an overall understanding of like my process, like how I solve problems, the problems I dealt with, my thinking behind those problems, and just try to really convey like how I deal with UX solutions. There's
Good.
not much like information about me, like who I am as a person yet. Like I want to dive into that like on my website, I guess more. But this PDF is mostly just like diving into the case studies.
Got it. Let me repeat that back to you. So you're currently working on your website. The PDF is currently functioning as a website replacement until you get the more formal asset up into play. Is that sounding correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Cool. Well, PDFs are fascinating, man. Tim, I posted a graphic in the chat. Pull that up when you get a second. For the folks in the chat, one of the things about PDFs is that there's a common stigma about like, hey, you've got a PDF, it's not good enough it's not as good as a website, therefore it's just not good enough as your portfolio. One of the fascinating things about PDFs is that from a customization perspective, they're highly malleable. And PDFs can also work very similarly to that of a website, having hot linking capability, navigation capability. PDFs are fascinating in their own way. Now, Ahmed, as we've talked with other guests and speakers on this platform before, we're hearing that the senior folk typically don't have as much bias against PDFs. Some of the more junior folk typically do have more of a bias against that. So I am in the camp, and it sounds like your mental model is already in the same place where it's like, you need a website at some point. That PDF will probably be a friction point, especially given the competition out there. But I'm not resistant to PDFs in general, and I commend you for building a PDF first for two reasons. One is you can continue applying for jobs, and then two is it works as a great outline for that of not just your portfolio, but your case studies as well. So like once you get that thing running, now you just break this PDF in a couple of pieces and then build a website out of it, and you're flying. I think you're doing a great job here so far.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought the PDF would like help me like make a table of contents in my own mind of how this case study went, because working for an organization for several years, like some things succeed, some things didn't succeed, some initiatives happened, some initiatives didn't happen. Like it was hard to like wrap my head around like what can I tell a story around. So trying to distill that narrative was the task of this portfolio, like making this portfolio.
Yeah, totally get that. And it looks like you've leaned into some of the PDF capability here. Like your very first slide has hot linking capability built in. Have you explored building navigations in PDFs and making it like feel like a website despite being individual slides?
Yeah, not really actually. It was mostly just a stand-in, but I guess depending on like your take and your opinion, like I might keep it as well. Like
yeah, I'm with you. For me, it's a time effort graph, and I think your effort's probably better spent to building that website anyway. I was just curious if you dabbled in it.
Yeah, that's good to know.
All right, cool. Tim, you've been scrolling through here. Give me a second to also take a scroll through. How are you feeling about everything so far?
Yeah, it's hard for me to not want to recommend. The issue I face with PDFs is often content groupings, right? There's not a clear sense to me as a person when I go from one type of section to the next type of section, right? Especially I scroll here, I don't know where one case study ends, another begins. And so it is hard for me to not recommend that you separate your case studies into different PDFs, but knowing at the same time this is like your stopgap measure, that would defeat the purpose, and that would not be actually a helpful recommendation. So I think if I was going to recommend some changes, I think in this, I'm looking for you to accomplish the same goals we talked about previously, which is your portfolio, which in this case is your PDF, needs to communicate who you are and then a little bit about your process. And right now, I don't feel like I'm getting a lot of who you are. I see your name here. I design for the user. We have user UX designer here. And then you have a very big dive right away into your case studies. But we're not taking any moments to talk about you, maybe a picture of you, maybe something that like spreads this out a little bit, since you have PDF, you have infinite scrollability, but making sure to just, instead of immediately ejecting someone into the work that you're doing, taking time for people to get acquainted with what they're about to experience, maybe even a table of contents here, or something would help me just navigate and build better expectations for everything on here. That'd be a recommendation just for starting off, because otherwise it's kind of it's a very cold open, right? I'm not even warmed up. I hardly know you, and I'm reading about the work that you're doing. My second recommendation is, as I'm scrolling through here, I am reading a lot of words that for me trigger and sound like AI written. And for example, right here, this is one of the most common patterns. I feel like I say this every single week. Claude in particular has a frequent pattern of saying it's not this, it's this. So the problem wasn't missing content, it was missing structure. This is a really common epithet that, or I think that's how you say it, yeah. But a very common like phrase that Claude and AI will often use to basically say it's not this, it's that. It's not A, it's B. It's not this, it's something else. And so I see this a lot, and it's not that it's not a valid way of telling a story, but it does make me want to discount a little bit of what I'm reading, because then I immediately am on guard of, oh, maybe this is AI generated, or maybe this is like not your actual work. That's probably not true. It is actual work, and it's probably just AI helped you to write some of it, or maybe even generate the PDFs based on structures that you gave it. But to see this so common, so frequently, the question wasn't, it was, is it's so it just stands out to me. It's the sore thumb for me.
Got it.
So
That's good to know. Yeah, it helped me, like, I guess, distill like all my deliverables and try to figure out like, okay, what do I do here? How do I tell the story? But it served as a tool for me to like help write it. But yeah, I guess it's pretty evident.
yeah, you just want to make sure it doesn't appear maybe every single case study. We see it so often. The system isn't. It is. It's in a lot of places. That's fine. For the record, we're definitely in favor of healthy AI usage. Like, use AI to help you plan some of the stuff and get your work out there. And you can even use it to actually straight up just generate PDFs as well, and it can help really streamline that process. And I would say there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's just making sure that when you package up your work, you package it in a way that is pleasing and aesthetic and desirable for everyone else who will read it, so they give it the full value and weight that it deserves. I'm also maybe experiencing, there's a lot of, Nate, and tell me if you agree, there's just a lot of, I want to call it colors, noise, like there's a lot of visual density here, like almost too much. Like, we have, some of them have this colored background, and then there's blue, there's greens, there's these purples, there's reds, there's yellows, there's arrows, there's images next to images. We've got a lot of graphics, and a lot of like words on top of this as well. And I'm not sure what the best move is here, Nate, because you definitely want someone who's reading this to get all the information that they would require to understand this. And at the same time, every single one of these slides is kind of a little bit intimidating to look at. And it's very loud in its own way.
Yeah, I've got thoughts on this, Tim. And it's kind of a direction that I don't think you're anticipating. Well, Ahmed, so where my thought is with this, I've got this sort of mental model that I don't have a phrase for. I don't have a title for it. So if you've got any good coined titles for this, let me know. The idea is I'm a big fan of 80% strategies. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you took this slideshow and you built this over 20 hours of effort. Very likely more hours than that you put into it, but just for the sake of the story, let's say you put 20 hours of effort into this. Now let's say that your satisfaction level with this is around 80%. We can now spend more effort and get you to 90% satisfaction. We could totally do that, but we might find it takes an additional 20 hours to get just another 10%. And then we can get you 95% satisfaction, but maybe that's an additional 20 hours. And we find that there's diminishing returns on the amount of effort you're putting in versus the amount of satisfaction that you have. If this slideshow that you've made, if this were my own slideshow, I would put this in the 80% satisfaction range. And when I hit 80% satisfaction is typically when I pivot and move on to the next thing. 80% is usually for me good enough to move on to the next thing because my effort is now spent better. My effort is now more valuable elsewhere. So we can optimize this slideshow. We totally can. There are things that we can improve here. It's a lot of information to consume at one time, and the ability to consume it all, I think, is limiting. And we could spend time optimizing that and adding more white space and decreasing the amount of information on every slide because it's a lot. I think your time is better spent focusing on that website and then using your current slide deck here as an outline for your case studies. How do you feel about that, Ahmed? Is that where your mindset is at as well?
Yeah, that's kind of how I was planning to use this portfolio anyway, as like an outline for my thoughts, just for like the time being. But basically, if I can apply to like a few jobs in the meantime, then like that would be useful. But no, I definitely agree with that. Like, this was more like a first or second draft of my portfolio, rather than like I poured over the fine details to polish it. So I definitely think that 80% rule is very like just constant everywhere in life, but
Sure is.
when you're building your own brand.
Is anything holding you back from pivoting to a full website?
Not really. No.
Cool. That's best case scenario. You know where you're currently at. You know what your next move is. Talk about actionability in a nutshell. Ahmed, pleasure talking with you. I don't think Tim and I have any other insights for you. Tim, any last words?
No, I mean, like I said, dwelling on that 20% is pretty tough. I would just when you make your case studies, just make sure to connect things in a friendly way. Like for example, having it very immersed. This is a very immersive slide here. So starting point before the framework, you give me all the information, and then a lot of these slides can feel kind of interruptive. And so making sure to, when you build your case study, just try to keep the threads between things without interrupting too much. Because some of these they don't match or blend as well. And they misuse, I think, the format of the PDF for you. So good luck, though.
Yeah, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next on the list, Tim, we've got Ryuma. Ryuma, if you're out there, put your hand up in the air.
I see them. Hello, Ryuma.
Tim found them already. I don't know how you find folks so fast.
Hello?
I remember where they are in my brain. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, indeed we can. So I noticed that you have a website here, and then you also have a resume. And typically, because of time constraints, we're only able to really look at one resource. I'm curious if you'd like to look at your website or your resume.
I guess probably my portfolio, probably.
Okay.
I mean, not that there is much on it anyway, but I just wanted to get a gist of it. I am working on 2 other projects, but they're not up yet because they're not finished.
Okay. Well then, will you go ahead and introduce yourself to us? Just let us know who you are, what we should call you, maybe what type of designer you are, what market you're in. If you have any particular goals, such as getting hired, finding work, freelance, etc., and then maybe what we can best do to support you today.
My real name's Jen. You could just call me Jen instead of my username. I am pretty brand new UX designer. Well, I've been studying on my own without going to school. Like I took the Google certificate course. I did some Udemy stuff to let me learn Figma on my own. And so I'm just basically trying to build a portfolio so that I could get my very first UX job. But it's really hard. It's been hard lately because of like, I guess just motivations and getting momentum and stuff. I've been told by certain people that, you already have one project up and it's not like you're not actively trying to work on a portfolio or anything. And so they were like, you know what, just make a portfolio and, kind of just throw the resume and portfolio out there, see if anyone bites. But honestly, like I've tried that for like a couple times and usually it's like a rejection. So I kind of expected that just based on like the limited amount of stuff that I have on my portfolio. So I guess right now I am trying to get into a junior position. And so just based on like the one case study that I have, I don't know if it's any good or I don't really have much feedback other than like maybe my boyfriend or my best friend and something like that. So I guess if there's anything I could to improve it, because I'm pretty novice, I could probably make it more flashy. I don't know. So just trying to get my bearings here.
Okay. Jen, thank you so much for being brave enough to come today, even with what you have described as maybe a portfolio that's not completed or may not have all the content you would expect from it. And I would love to maybe deviate slightly and just say, wherever anyone is starting, starting is the right thing to do, right? And everyone starts from mostly nothing. So to be here, to be in a position where you're putting yourself out there, where you're taking the courage to really put your feet out there, I think is an incredible move and shows a lot of character strength. And so kudos and congratulations to you. And I'd salute you in this part of the process. We've all been here. We've all started here at some point. And with that in mind, like we just want to be lockstep in helping people keep going and go even to the next step or the next part of that step. I would also say, in terms of like what portfolios are, I know Nate and I, we have that fancy rhetoric. We talk about like it's supposed to show who you are and it shows your process. There are, in fact, successful portfolios out there. These are not the ones we always recommend, but there are portfolios out there of people who are quite successful. And the only thing it has on there is their name and their picture. And it just says, hey, I'm a UX designer. And that's all their website does. That's it. It'll just be mostly blank and empty. And so I would say in terms of minimalism, it's okay to have a portfolio website that is either not injected with tons of case studies and content. And it's also okay to have some that are, maybe that do have that kind of content. It just depends on your goals and where you're going. Nate and I are probably going to agree that a good move for you is going to be accruing more work and more evidence to kind of help you make a name for yourself and to convince people that you are the greatest designer in the entire world. And making sure that you can communicate your understanding of that field. But this doesn't mean this is a bad place to start. And so let's not get down. Let's not get down on anything, and let's just see what we can find, and maybe some easy next steps for you. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so you know, well, on the page that you're on, the actual thumbnail for this project, I haven't figured out how to make it clickable, but the title is able to be clickable. But I've got some criticism for that.
Okay. Very cool. I also noticed that you're using Webflow. Is there a reason you chose Webflow?
Well, I'm kind of intimidated using a template on my own. So I kind of just, asked ChatGPT which websites I can use, and so I kind of just played around with a couple of them, and this one seems okay to use so far. So I didn't really have a particular choice really, other than, oh, okay, this one kind of makes sense, and I can kind of fiddle with it.
Yeah, I feel Nate, you kick me in the shins on this. You can slap me on the wrist, and you do not have to do anything different. You can continue to use Webflow, but normally Nate and I recommend anything for anyone. Anything for anyone. Whatever works is a really good choice. The only challenge is that recently Webflow has done some things that have disenfranchised many other people, including secret mass layoffs of their teams and stuff like that, and the way that they've handled things. And so Nate and I no longer recommend Webflow to people. But that is it. That is it. So if you're early on in your genesis of this and you find that you're going to grow, it's possible Webflow may not be the right place for you. Keeping that in mind, though, the principles that we can talk about for what a case study and portfolio have apply everywhere. Apply everywhere. So with that small divulgence, and Nate will probably course correct a little bit, but just watch out. Just watch out for them. They've had some malicious practices and have not been good for people over time.
Okay.
Jen, I got a question for you. It sounds like you're getting started in the UX field. Are you pivoting away from some other field?
I went to college for English literature. So initially in my early life, I wanted to be a writer. And so I have a degree in English literature. And so I pretty much can have a lot of transferable skills. Like I can analyze very well, I can write, I can critically think. And so there's a lot of things that I can draw from my own degree, just because like it has taught me to research and think on my own and make assumptions or infer a lot of things just based on the information that I have. And so that's kind of what I did, but I didn't get into the English field or do any kind of research kind of jobs. I did like a lot of odd jobs that just got me money, basically. And then I was in the dental field for like maybe 5 years or so. I was a receptionist, like a dental receptionist. And so I basically learned on the job. I learned insurance, I scheduled people, I made phone calls, like that kind of thing. So that was the most I've had professionally. But that in itself has taught me a lot of things too, about bureaucracy and just kind of keeping your head down when you need to keep your head down and when to say something. And so I guess I got tired of doing that because I really hate customer service at this point. But yeah, I decided, I dated one guy who was actually I think he's like a front end or back end engineer. And so he basically studied all of that on his own, and now he's like making big bucks. And so he encouraged me to start on this UX journey because I considered it maybe 10 years ago, but I was not really in the great mindset too. But now
I understand.
Yeah, I'm not with him anymore, but he still like gave me a lot of encouragement and stuff about this, and so I'm still doing it.
Well, so the reason I'm asking, there are a lot of different directions we could take this conversation. Your portfolio, and it sounds like your career path, is at a place where you are at many different crossroads. There are many different directions you could go, and now it's narrowing down what are the next actionable steps for you. Was that sounding right to you as well?
Yeah. I've now that you focused it a little bit, so I've thought about doing a lot of like, I don't know. It's hard to decide where I want to go because I like making wireframes. I like, pixel pushing. I also am really good at researching because that's basically what my degree is. I research to write a lot of papers, and so I could do research. I'm also really interested in the whole AI stuff. Just talking to ChatGPT every day is like amazing, but I know that it's a tool, and so I want to make something so that it's more accessible and more, I guess, I don't know if I want to teach users how to use AI because a lot of people don't use it correctly. And so I kind of want to get into the AI industry too, but not sure how hard that is nowadays. I'm just slowly trying to teach myself how to use AI in Figma to help me like do certain things. rather than manually do it on my own. I could go in any different direction for UX in
Yeah.
general. It's just, yeah, I wouldn't know where to go really because I like certain things about making things in Figma, and creatively, as a person, it's about the same as writing in a way. Yeah, I get to.
Interesting.
Uh,
So
yeah,
the
I get to.
reason I'm asking this question is there are lots of different directions we could go. And now I'm trying to figure out, well, what are some objective criteria by which we can give you some actionability that will enable you to get success, circling back to your goal of getting your first UX job. And with that goal in mind, we can like narrow down the possible directions you could go. So for example, you've got a portfolio here. There are certainly some critiques Tim and I have about your portfolio. As you mentioned earlier, it's still early in the making of your portfolio, and there's optimizations and growth that can happen there. But if we elevate away from your portfolio and talk about more of your positioning, getting that job in the field, I feel like there's some more paramount conversations that you could potentially have. So for example, we know that the UX and product design and tech fields in general are all real high competition at the moment with a real low supply of jobs. So now the question is, well, how do you position yourself for one of those jobs in any effective way, knowing the competition is so great? And that's why I asked about if you are pivoting away from a previous field. You've mentioned a couple things that are really interesting. First off, your English literature degree has a heavy background in research. There is certainly some differentiation there that we could position you around to beat out other candidates in regard to certain jobs. Then you also mentioned dentistry, 5 years there. That's nothing to scoff at either. We could, for example, position yourself in your portfolio as, I'm a UX designer that builds and solves solutions for dentists. That narrows your scope of candidacy, that reduces the amount of jobs that you can apply for, but vastly increases your effectiveness at applying for those jobs. And all the marketing books behind me would argue leaning into your differentiation, reducing the amount of jobs you can apply for, and focusing on a particular industry or niche. All the marketing books behind me will argue that that's the effective model that you should follow. Let me pause there. Do you have a desire to like narrow down your candidacy at this stage? Like, would you be okay just like, hey, my goal is just getting that first UX job. I am best strongly positioned for dentistry. Therefore, I'm attacking that industry. How does that like direction sound to you?
It has pros and cons. So definitely, like, if I were to target dental, I do have a lot of frustrations with certain, programs that they use to make our job easier. But at the same time, it's like I don't want to limit myself to just dental or medical or something, even though I do have some history in there. It sounds limiting, but at the same time, there is some lucrative, pulls there. So I'm not sure where to go about that.
Let me say this in a different way. Tim, let me add one thing and then I'll pass the mic over to you. Teresa, I love your mindset there in regard to like, it feels like it's limiting, and it is by design. So let me pose a thought to you. Let's say that you position yourself to target only dentists and you will become a UX designer, product designer for dentistry. You can now apply for dentist jobs, but Walmart or like some other high tech job, Amazon, they're hiring for a senior product designer. If you apply for that job, they'll look at your application and they'll say, we're not going to hire Teresa because they specialize in dentistry. They're not a good fit for us. So then your reaction might be, well, dentistry is too limiting. Let me make myself more broad so I can also apply for all those other jobs, right? Now there's another conundrum, and that is you apply for that Amazon job, but that Amazon application, that job description, also has hundreds of other candidates applying. And some of those candidates specialize in tech. So now you're saying you are a candidate that doesn't have a niche or industry specific skill set. And now you're going against candidates that have technical skill sets specific to like Amazon, for example. So now you are a broad candidate trying to apply for jobs in a specific field, and you get outbid for that job from those candidates. So even if you didn't want to limit yourself to dentistry, you are still weakening your positioning as you apply for those other jobs. Thus, the argument, you might as well position yourself for a specific industry anyway. Is that argument making sense to you?
It does. I actually forgot to mention, I actually also have an odd job as well. I was part of Parks and Rec in Philadelphia for a few years as well. And
Nice.
so I'm actually making one of my other projects. My second project is it's centered around my best friend's job. She works in like an older adult center, and so she was thinking of making an app. It's a really simple app to like do basically just have their schedules, and like people can just look up information on that one app and stuff. And we weren't going to launch it or anything, but like I'm working on that too, so I have a bit of history in Parks and Rec for a little bit. Anyway, yeah, like it makes sense. I think what you're saying makes sense. I think it would give me some leverage if I were to center myself somewhere specifically instead of, well, I could probably still apply everywhere else, but yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah. I love your instinct about lucrative versus like your interest. And I think there's a great insight there about understanding your different goals, right? You can have personal advancement goals, or you could have like making money goals. When we talk about like what makes someone qualified for an industry, right now we're talking about UX design and product design. This is typically like a process. Like making something is often a process, right? And so most people can learn this process. You can learn how to do UX design. You can learn how to software engineer. But what you can't necessarily learn via process is called vertical knowledge. And this would be like your experience as a person, like as a human, like your experience in different places. So you might have a vertical that is dentistry. You spent 5 years in dentistry. So now you have a vertical knowledge in dentistry. Maybe you spent some time in parks and recreation, and that would be your parks and recreation vertical, right? So these are verticals that you get to take, and they give you a unique lens and qualification that you then take into a process that you can learn. And this puts you somewhere. And you get to decide partially where you want to be inside of this. Some places are a little bit more of a natural fit. And this is what Nate's talking about in terms of like being effective as a candidate, being effective, where you're able to say like my vertical knowledge gives me qualifications to work inside of this industry the most. So I will take this process, I will apply it to this vertical knowledge, and this is probably the place where I'm going to make the most money or the most income because people will trust me the most. However, from a side of personal development, you could go learn a new vertical. And this probably won't make you a lot of money at first. But over time, as you put effort into personal development and new verticals, you may build a new section for yourself that allows you to have new opportunities. So I would just keep in mind when we're talking about this, we wouldn't discourage you from trying out new industries or going new places or doing any of that kind of stuff. But just keep in mind that from the lens of someone who wants to be efficient as a candidate, we often recommend relying on that vertical knowledge to get where you want to go. There are probably a million like minor things that Nate and I could recommend for your portfolio that we will abstain from doing today, because I think really maybe getting yourself in a position where you know a little bit more about the verticals you want to lean into, or maybe some of your trajectory that could help you a lot. We would recommend. We have tons of portfolios to recommend you to. There's even one I'll put it in here from Florencia, who's a super cool friend of ours. She's made an incredible portfolio. This is one of those ones that's just like Caroline's, where if you go in here, you'll see many good examples of what to do inside of a portfolio website and what maybe things are missing from it. But oftentimes, even in here, you'll see she relies on her vertical experience to help build some of her domain authority. And you will find probably a little more success as you transition this into statements that rely on your own domains and then help people connect. How the heck does dentistry connect to UX design? And you're like, well, actually, like being a receptionist inside dentistry taught me a lot about customer problems and how to solve customer problems. And now I take customer problems and I solve them in the UX way. And this makes me perfectly positioned inside of UX because now I know how to talk to people, how to empathize with them, how to find out the real problems, and then the solutions that make the most sense. And that makes you a lot more of an appealing candidate because now you've connected the dots on why you're the best candidate.
Okay. I would say I would counter with like maybe, I mean, I haven't looked or anything, but I'm just like sure, I can probably pivot to something really small and possibly get a job, but who's to say that are positions out there that kind of, gravitate towards what I'm trying to pivot, I guess.
I don't know if that is a counter. I'd say there's opportunities almost everywhere. And when there's not an opportunity, as Nate and I also say, you can go make one. You can be the first one to do it. It's harder. It's a lot harder if you're the first one,
Right.
but you can in fact do it. So
Okay.
I think that's probably where we're going to leave it off today. What would you
Okay.
say, Nate?
Jennifer, love your mindset. Loves Tim mindset here. This is a great place for us to end the conversation. If we were to provide some like actionability for you, you're clearly in the midst of working on your portfolio. Carry on. Case study would probably be the next most important thing beyond like you're currently working on a case study. There's some optimization there. I would also argue, if able, add a case study dedicated to dentistry. And then if you do want to go down that dentistry vertical, you've got the case study prepped. If you don't, then you still have a case study to present to other industries as well. If you're able to add a dentistry case study, would love to see that.
I'll consider it. Yeah. I just the idea of that is like, wow, it's a lot because I just know too much.
I too am in the healthcare field, and it is a mess, a bramble of just old dated technology that doesn't communicate with one another. I empathize with your mindset on the dentistry side of things.
Okay. Yeah, I'll think about it. Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Appreciate talking with you. Next on the list, we've got Yazi Need Coffee, and then Quad, you're up after that. You're on deck.
Let me see. I do see Yazi. I do not see their portfolio link.
Oh,
So I'll invite them up. Yazi Need Coffee. I don't see their site though.
Hello, sir. Yeah, I just deleted it by accident. Hold on a sec.
I might have it here. Is it the Behance link?
That's for Parameet, I think. Yazi Need Coffee actually left. That's kind of weird.
They took off?
Aha.
Yazi, come back.
Okay, invite him up.
Oh yeah. You know when you click someone profile and you try to check your profile so I can send you Behance, so I clicked that, leave the stage by accident.
Well, I can't tell you how many
Well-
times I've left Teams calls because instead of hitting the screen share button, I hit the leave call button.
Sounds like a UX case study waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about this. Yazi Need Coffee, will you introduce yourself to us and share a little bit of information about what kind of designer you are, maybe the market that you're working around, specialties that you lean into, and then some of your goals. Specifically, are you trying to get hired right now? Are you just upskilling? Do you want a promotion somewhere, maybe freelance work? And then today, if we were to say, what can we do for you today? Help direct us to talking about positioning, maybe discovery, could be diving into a case study. Where can we support you?
Yeah, for me, I'm just trying to find my own style, because what I think now, it's like when there's an AI, you should be more genuine or more human, even that human side in the section, in graphic design section. And that's the only thing I want to do right now, to discover my own style, which is I find a little bit hard. Are you getting what I'm saying? Or?
I'm hearing you say that when you approach AI, you want to be more human.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I would still love to be introduced to who you are and what you do.
Yeah, now I'm working at the textile industry, and I'm trying to change my job to work on graphic design itself. Just the poster designs, I don't know about visual identity. I'm still not learned yet. I'm so new to this. Yeah, so my main object, which is how do I develop a style for my own self, and which formula I should follow, so I can step up on a market. That's it.
Gotcha. So this is a question of you are transitioning
Mhm.
to graphic/visual design.
Yep.
And the question is now, how do you develop an identity in a brand that would presumably help you. Are you looking for full-time roles in graphic design, freelance roles? Can you tell us more there? Freelance roles. So it'd be, how do you develop an identity that lets you position yourself for freelance roles successfully?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what should we call you today?
Whatever you want, you can call me Albi.
Yazi needs coffee. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Okay, Nate. This is a big one. This is a big undertaking. Not something to take on lightly.
Yazi, we're currently looking at a Behance. You're asking a very broad question about positioning. For the moment, I'm going to totally ignore the Behance if that's okay with you. And I want to talk about some marketing theory. Is that sounding okay?
Okay.
Cool. I love talking about marketing, and I appreciate the question because I don't get to talk about marketing. Often my background in education is in marketing, and there's so many fun things to talk about that I don't often get the opportunity to.
Me either, by the way.
You've got a marketing background too?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, this might be some theory and rhetoric for the chat, and less for you. In the field of marketing, there are a bunch of different, what we refer to as orientations by which you can produce a product. Now, there are a myriad of them. I want to talk about two of them. One is referred to as product orientation, and another is referred to as market orientation. Yazi, either of those phrases sounding familiar to you?
I can't remember so well, but you can continue on.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. Let's say that you're a freelancer entering the market and your goal is, how do I position myself to create a product that best meets the expectations for my own financial goals, but also that of a target audience? If you were to build an audience, if you were to build a product through product orientation, you would state, I have a particular product that I have already developed that I now want to sell to the greater world. I am pushing this product onto the greater world. And this is what the majority of products are as they're released into the space. I want to build a thing. I have now built that thing. I now sell said thing. Advantages and sacrifices with every opportunity here and every model by which you build products. In product orientation, you already have a deep intrinsic knowledge of the thing you want to build. In your case, you've already got, I imagine, visual design capabilities, skill sets, all of that. Now your goal is to figure out industry. There are sacrifices with this particular tactic as well. One of the quandaries that we'll see in product-oriented methodologies is that there is often not a validation for if the product you're trying to sell is applicable to any particular market. Restaurants are a really easy example of this. Somebody really wants to make a restaurant in their style of choice, Indian food, for example. Somebody makes an Indian restaurant. They get the location for it. Turns out the local area has no desire for an Indian restaurant, or there are already 12 other Indian restaurants out there, and the business fails because of that. That's the major sacrifice in product orientation in a nutshell. Let's counter that through a market orientation perspective. And market orientation states, I don't know what the product is that I want to build, but instead, I'm going to find a problem that the market has, and I'm going to build a solution dedicated to that particular problem. Now, this has a great advantage of being able to validate that there is a need for that particular solution in the marketplace. The validation is fantastic. The sacrifice then being, you have no idea what thing you're trying to build. It could be a problem that you have no interest in. It may not even be relevant to that of visual and graphic design, right? But you know there's validation for it, and you know that it will likely have far more success capability than that of throwing another product in the market that there may not be a desire for. Those are the two orientations in a nutshell. There are other orientations out there. Societal orientation is a big one. Sales orientation, where you just push via sales. But the market orientation, product orientation, those are two biggies that I typically talk about. So now your question is, if your mindset is like, how do I position myself? That's from a perspective of a market-oriented approach. You're trying to figure out what's the problem that needs solving, who's the target audience, how do I even find that? And that is a subject by which there are books dedicated to, college degrees dedicated to, and certainly far more information that we could talk about than we could talk about in this in the next 10 minutes, right? So there is no quick solution to that. If I were in your shoes, the next goal I would have is trying to figure out how I might go about positioning myself and how I might go about researching a particular market out there and identifying what problems need solving. And then you can circle back to your skill sets and saying, can I use my skill sets to solve that particular problem? Easy to say on paper, real tough to do. The answer to your question of like, how do I position myself and how do I understand a target audience? That's the ultimate question that every business is trying to answer, and there's no quick solution for it. Let me pause there. Yazi, I threw a lot of rhetoric and theory at you. How are you feeling about all of that?
Yeah, you give me some kind of different view from what I'm thinking. For me, it was my only struggle right now is like to find my own style because I want to step on a market, and depend on this, I can go for different sections or different like market, let's say luxurious stuff and like that. Also, there's a point people should not miss out. I don't know if you want to explain that, but there's difference between product marketing and what's called what the other word freelancing service marketing. So you should explain that to people so they don't mess up when they try to like sell a product as same as selling like services. If you get what I'm saying.
I don't know
And
that
that's it. Thank you.
Oh, if you've got a definition of service marketing, happy to hear your definition. The hurdle is marketing is one of those industries where there are so many different definitions based on individual criteria and cultural context. So like I would, based on my background, I would argue that selling a product and selling a service is the same methodology. I would argue that those are both products. But it sounds like you've got a different mindset there.
Yeah, because what I've seen is that when you are selling services to people, you should sell yourself before the service because people should be trusting you more. The product it's all oriented about like how the people should trust the brand itself, and when it's come to the service, people should trust the person itself. I don't know. What are you saying, mate?
I would say both of those. I would say everything you described would also have to be done to a product as well. But I imagine there's deep nuance to all of that conversation.
Yeah, there's also I'll point out what you're talking about is the product orientation, where you want to start off with a style that's already defined and real, and then you find people who, by virtue of your style, want to gravitate towards you. The compelling thing about product orientation is that this lets you find something that you love to do personally, and then you get to do it. And there's a lot of awesome self-discovery that happens here, and this is a viable way to do design. To do anything, right? Nate's point is not that product orientation is better or worse than market orientation. They just have different strengths and different strategies for approach. So if you were set on finding your style, just know that you're going to be in a position where you find something that you love and is valid and is real. Just know that it's going to be, your challenge will then be, how do you sell that? And you're going to have to find a way to make yourself virtuous enough by nature of your style that people want it. Versus a market orientation, which might be studying and saying, well, right now the AI field is booming. This is just an example. This is not a suggestion, but an example is like the AI field is booming. What are some graphic design styles that AI founders are looking for? And then can I market specialize in that type of style because I know there are people who need that type of visual design. And so it's just different. They both involve learning things. They both involve a level of like investment. It's just dependent on whether you think you can be enough on your own that people are drawn to you versus going to where people are and meeting them there. In terms of a service model versus a product model, my own understanding of this, when we talk about this, I often talk about designers as we call it like productized design, right? Versus like maybe traditional is what I would just call it. Productized design is where you're basically selling a result. Like I will improve churn, right? I'm improving churn by percentage. Where's the percent button? My keyboard doesn't have labels on it. There it is. Aha. Improving churn by a percentage versus on a traditional thing, you might be like help team with product launch. Right. And there's different people for some people have products where this is their goal. Like from a business perspective, this is very appealing because you're able to clearly identify the exact outcomes that you're driving towards. And this makes you seem valuable. Versus on a traditional side, this requires that designers in general are already seen as valuable, right? The implicit thing is that designers help teams with product launches. And so you are the person who does this, assuming teams value designers in this way. And so there's lots of different ways to approach this. I think for someone who is brand new and starting off, finding your own style is probably a good way to go. There is one activity I've recommended to people in the past. We'll just take a really short aside to do this, which is to think about this in terms of what we call the love. This is going to be a thumbs up. I get worse at this every time I do this. It's kind of like a thumbs up, right? Maybe. Ooh, maybe. Value. Okay. And the goal of this activity is just to identify what you love to do, what you don't love, and then maybe what you have skills in, and then what can support your financial goals and where you want to go in a trajectory. So it might be worth even saying before you identify the style, you might want to say, well, the kind of market that I want to appeal to, what market is that? And you might say, do I like working for example, just put this in here. Do I like working for AI people? Do I like working for, maybe you like working for fintech? Maybe you're like, oh, I really want the human element. So you're like, I want to work for small businesses, like local people, right? And so you might take these and you might put them all into this left-hand column over here. And then you might say, do I want to work? Would I enjoy doing work for people who work inside of AI? Yes or no? And as you eventually start to fill out this chart, some of it will have X's, some of it will have checks. You'll start to identify maybe where you lean as a person. And you can start to say, this is probably the area I should learn the style of. Because as a person, what do I think supports me and where do I want to go? And this can be, I think, a good hybrid between these, right? There's an element of like self-discovery, make the product real. And there's also an element of learn and fit to what's available. You identify what is available, and then you identify which of these you want to lean into. And then you start to build yourself around those things as you figure out where your style is. To answer the original question, though, that you started this whole call off with, what formula should you follow to learn your personal style? There is no such formula that I'm aware of. And I cannot give you a prescription for how to build your own personal style in this case.
Yeah, thank you very much. I guess I'm gonna drop myself like a baby in the sea and try to swim. So thanks very much. I'm done with it. Yeah, thank you. Actually, it was so helpful.
Hey, good luck, man. If you end up finding a formula by which you can answer your question, let us know. Or write a book and make yourself millions, and then all your career aspirations are solved.
Yeah, I'm gonna try my crypto courses. I'm working on it. Don't worry.
Sounds good, man. Hey, appreciate you being willing to hang out and talk with us.
Yeah, thank you. Take care, guys.
Quad, it is finally time.
Quad immediately requesting to speak.
They know.
Okay, Quad, come on up.
Hello.
Hello, Quad.
You guys can hear me all right?
I can hear you.
Sounds good.
Find your materials in here.
Oh, yeah, I have to pull it up too. Let's see. Did I?
So at the same time, I'm also.
Oh, that
So
was
at
all
the same
three
time,
of
I'm
us.
also kind of looking for a build. Like the build just failed. I actually just had an update, but it should be all right as it's going.
Okay, cool. Well, Quad, will you introduce yourself to us? Tell us a little bit about who you are, what kind of design work you do, maybe your market fit. If you can tell us a little bit about some of your personal goals, if that's finding a job, freelance work, fractional work, etc., and then maybe where we can focus today for you.
So a little bit about myself. I initially, funny enough, I actually did start in marketing myself. And then I slowly pivoted over to product design. And how I got into there was funny enough, when you guys mentioned Webflow, I worked at a startup and nobody was able to handle the Webflow, and I just took it over. And then little by little, Figma and all that became the part of my day that I liked the most. Then I got into product design role, and I ended up being like a product manager, product designer that like flexed all of like the interface design systems and like some of the feature builds. And then now I am currently like head of product, but kind of what I really, really like is design in this current like time period, with like all the tools, like let's say Claude Code to do things like this entire website, as well as going through a lot of like the different motion timings, all that different stuff, and some of the things that get like missed between Figma to the canvas itself. And I'm looking for, honestly, I'm just looking to see, hey, like what's kind of out there as I kind of missed some of that IC work itself.
Okay. Well, let's see where we go then. Where should we focus today?
So in terms of this, one of the things that I've noticed is I don't really seem to be getting like too much bites in terms of like, hey, like how are people like, I feel as though I kind of have a little bit of a problem here in terms of positioning because my history itself is a little bit mixed rather than just specifically focusing on product design work itself. So also being from like a startup itself, like one of the things that I kind of also deal with is like, hey, you're spread pretty broad, but like I just want to know kind of how to position myself in terms of like making those kind of a boon rather than like, hey, you have like a lot of breadth, but we would prefer somebody with a little bit more like depth overall. So that's kind of like the biggest thing if you guys want to look at it from like a narrative perspective.
Sure. Okay. And then you're targeting senior product designer full-time roles right now?
Yeah. And
Okay.
also like potentially companies that are like a little bit more open to product designers pushing like PRs or like working on that last 10% or doing like interaction design as well too.
Okay. Are you sure you're a product designer if that's the case?
That's actually one of my biggest questions lately, but right now I believe yes, because like I'm still like always in Figma doing tweaks on that side. But like I don't think I am at the point where I can say like, hey, I'm a design engineer or I'm this or I'm that, because like all of this is kind of done empowered by tools like Claude Code. So if somebody tells me like, hey, this thing is broken here, I won't know the theory behind how to fix it, but I might know like the theory of like, okay, hey, what might be wrong? How might we improve it?
If I'm being candid and if I'm taking you at face value, it sounds like you're talking yourself out of something that may actually already be true.
Mhm.
If you were looking for a role that lets you work on design and lets you ship code, fundamentally, that probably fall under a design engineer versus strictly a product design role. Should we?
Mhm.
Have you had? I don't know how do I want to take this. I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak out of turn or speak too much, but I would question the value of targeting product designer roles with the perspective and expectations of this type of work style. What would you say, Nate?
That's just that would be an ideal though. It wouldn't really be like the end all kind of like be all itself for it.
I would say that the amount of jobs available for that role are certainly dwindling. Not dwindling is not the right word, but limiting compared to that of like full-fledged product design roles versus engineering roles. So it'd certainly be a harder, it'd be a harder thing to tackle. But I think what I'm hearing is that you're also totally open to just a general PD role. And I think there's a conversation in there about like centralized versus decentralized environments as well, because I think you're pretty heavily in the decentralized camp. That's where I would want to go with the conversation, Tim. Is that aligning with you?
Maybe a little bit. When you are getting into your interviews, if I just ask you, Quad, are you hitting, when you're applying to jobs, are you getting stuck at like interview 2, interview 3, final interviews, maybe initial phone calls? Can you tell us more about your process where you're getting stuck?
So I think right now I'm kind of getting stuck, surprisingly, even on like interview 1, where it's like a little bit of a bite. We talk about the different things. We have like a very good conversation. But I think one of my problems itself is just like how wide that is. And I think I need to really, really like either specify on the targeting, but I also don't know like, hey, like what should I drop? Should it be like things like experiments for A/B tests, or should it be like, how do I like position in a way that makes me more palatable for product design roles, or just classical ones, because as Nate mentioned, it's kind of that same problem where you don't quite know, like there aren't as many opportunities available nearby me for like that sort of design engineering role. So I'm just trying to look at like, hey, this is the total market. This is what I can kind of go for.
Any desire in the freelance route?
A little, actually, yeah, but also at the same time, I'm a little bit swamped in terms of, hey, like the timing for like work, and also like doing all these applications in the portfolios. But the freelance route is good. I think it's just I need to figure out like some sort of base to then be able to like pitch and sell to people, and like have, okay, these are my different these are the different interactions that I did. Because I think one of the problems about, I guess, where I'm at in terms of design is it looks like it's a little bit too expensive unless like I lower like the price cost for like, let's say like a small business around me.
Got it. Okay. I'm not a huge fan. Like, I don't have much desire to go to the freelance route. Tim's got far more experience in the freelance world than I do. Tim, I want to talk about environments. Do you mind if I hop into that spiel?
Go for it.
Quad, what did you mention what I should call you?
Like first name?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ebe.
Ebe, pleasure to talk with you, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate you hopping on here. Hey, quick thought while I've just got it on the top of mind. You should toss your name on your portfolio. I don't think you've currently got your name on there, do you?
Yeah, no. So one of the interesting things about it is hover over the photo. This was like how I initially did it, but then I also have to fit it in, but I got a little bit annoyed in terms of like the hierarchy of it and fitting it in that hero section. So I still need to think it through.
Nice. Okay, cool.
Like how exactly I'm going to place it.
Right on. Cloud Code, building sites in Cloud Code is so stinking cool, man. Have you ever had a conversation about the difference between centralized work environments versus decentralized work environments?
So I actually never have, because I kind of learned all of this stuff for product design on my own. Like I have never worked in a team where there has been another product designer actually while I've been functioning in Figma and these different tools. So no, don't know much about decentralized, non-decentralized.
Cool. This will be a good frame of reference for you because I think you're pretty healthily in one camp, and this is gonna provide some sort of framework for how we position you moving forward. Tim, if you don't mind, keep sharing, and then I tossed a link in the chat. And that way, we're experimenting with like we now paid for a service to do YouTube shorts, and I don't know how to. If Tim keeps sharing, then we should have more ability to control that. I don't know. I'm new to all of this. Let's talk about this. So this is a really interesting mental model for how teams build and format their product design teams. The first thing I should mention is that we're going to talk about two, centralized and decentralized, but these are the two extremes of the spectrum, and there are flavors between that we're going to ignore for the time being. Tim, go ahead and load up that first image, centralized UX team. So this is what's referred to as a centralized team, and the reason it's called centralized is because there's a UX manager, and under which all UX and product design effort is hosted. Advantages and sacrifices to every format here, but let's pretend that you are one of those yellow UX designers there. And the UX manager says, hey, Ebe, welcome to Tuesday of work. I'm going to assign you projects A and projects B. When you're done with that, let me know, and I'll assign you other tickets for you to work on. And then you go work on project A, project B, and when you're done, you push it off to a dev team, and then you just wait for your UX manager to assign you more work. Pros and cons. This model is awesome in the sense that you get to work directly with other UX designers, and you get to really excel and grow in personal design craft. There are consequences with this model. One of the big ones is that you can feel like a cog in the machine very quickly. Like you're just getting assigned tickets. You don't get to do the research. You don't get to like start the conversation early. You're just brought in at some point without deeper context on the project. And then you work on a bunch of projects at one time without seeing like the after effects. So you can feel like your fulfillment level might be lower in these circumstances. Let's compare that. One last thing. let's say that you're a UX manager hiring for this kind of formation, and you've got a backlog of effort that you need to hire for. Like the amount of designers you have aren't fulfilling the work quickly enough. So you need to hire for a designer. In this formation, UX managers will typically hire and prioritize specialists, those with niche individual skill sets. The hurdle here is like, well, we've got Jim over there already who's really good at accessibility, and we've got Stuart over there who's really good at design systems. So like, who can we hire with some sort of specialization that benefits the entire team? So like, when I get a project that needs some sort of unique thing, I can give it over to E because he's got background there. So in this formation, they typically prefer and prioritize specialists. Now, let me pause there. How you feeling about that? Is that making sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. And it also kind of reminds me of like some of the things that I've heard through podcasts for like, let's say like Shopify itself, right? Like they have a rotating team that goes between different, like, let's say like different projects, and they essentially come in. It's like a contract thing. They do their job, they move on to the next kind of thing, and they all specialize in like one specific skill set.
Interesting. Okay. Let's compare that now to a decentralized environment. Decentralized environments work differently. So now you're that yellow UX designer, but the first thing you should note is that you no longer work on a team of other UX designers. And now you're in a decentralized product team. Some folk refer to these as pods. Your coworkers are now that of product managers, developers. This graphic says other roles, but it could be things like business analysts and that sort. And now you are a single UX designer focused only, usually there are always exceptions to every rule, but you're typically only focused on one project. And you, as the only designer, have to do all of the things on that project. So you get to do all the research, you get to do all the wireframes, all the individual design work, the prototyping, blah, blah, blah. And then you eventually have to pass it off to a developer, or in your case, you could potentially engineer and develop it yourself. Advantages and disadvantages to this one. When it comes to advantages, I typically find much more fulfillment in these environments. This is the environment that I'm currently in. Disadvantages are that this particular role has much less capability in regard to like design craft, much more capability in regard to like facilitation, leadership. You're the only designer, right? So you have to walk that entire product team and own the entire design process. You're leading the design charge for that entire project. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because in this environment, decentralized environments, there's only one designer per project usually. So if you're hiring for a decentralized team, you prioritize generalism. You prioritize a person with a myriad of range of skill sets. Even if they're not like expert in any one of those things, it's more important to hire somebody with a generalistic skill set, a little bit of skill in all of the things, because it's only one designer. You have to publish a project at some point, right? So these environments, decentralized environments, are typically found in enterprise formations, usually agile formations, whereas the other one we were first talking about, centralized, this is typically found more in like design agencies. And they're found in other things as well, but like design agencies adopt this format a lot. Circling all of that back, Ebe, I think based on your criteria and based on the background you've described, I think you'd be heavily more in favor of a decentralized environment, meaning we should probably position you for that of enterprise like agile efforts. How are you feeling about that?
I think it makes sense too, because instead of it just because I have a lot of generalism here, it would work to my strengths to position me for that. And then on top of that, you'll be able to kind of see a project end to end, and you'll be able to use all the different like things like, hey, knowing how to set up like experiments, A/B tests, all these different things as well, a lot more.
Hell yeah. Dude, A/B testing is so, I think the rhetoric you have pretty well positions you for that of senior level. I haven't even looked at a case study, but you clearly have insight here at a deeper business problem level. A/B testing is so cool to see in product design. Mm-hmm. I don't know where to take the conversation from here, Ebe and Tim. I feel like we've talked a lot of theory. We haven't really looked at your website, but at least I personally haven't really looked at your website yet. It feels like the majority of the conversation is about solving your positioning. I don't know if we're any closer to that, but it feels like we should look at your website and review it from like a enterprise agile perspective and see if it's positioning you appropriately for that. And then theoretically, you would only apply for enterprise level roles. Is that okay with you?
No, that makes sense. I just find that so I have two concerns as well here. One concern would be in terms of like pedigree coming from like more so startup or like scale up stage. I feel as though when I'm applying for enterprise roles, I tend to kind of run into a little bit of that wall versus companies that might have like a like established like tech culture or like let's say like design cultures. And then secondly, being in that stage the whole time makes me a little scared about speed in terms of enterprise. But I think that might be changing like a little bit more with how some of these different teams are like showing like growth.
In regard to speed, are you describing you're fearful that they move too slowly?
To be honest, it's a mixed bag. At the same time, I'm afraid of moving too slowly. But then on this other side where it's like go too fast, you don't really get the time to really like dive into like craft before, hey, it's on to the next thing kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're totally right. I appreciate your mindset there. That is a wise insight that is probably birthed through your experience. I think you're totally right. Enterprise environments move much more slowly, for better or worse. I think they're getting better at it now that the inclusion of AI is coming into play. We're now enabling agile environments to publish far more quickly. So like outputs are now being pushed to test and iterate more quickly. But I think you're right. Enterprise just moves more slowly than everything else. Is that a friction point for you?
I don't think it's honestly. Most of my jobs have since around like let's say like 2020 when I first started in kind of the tech space itself were in the startup side. So I also don't really mind that as much because it might give like a little bit more like breathing room in terms of hey like working on like either like side projects, craft, or things of that sort.
Yeah, Tim, I've been chatting a lot. You've got some drawings up here. How are you feeling about all of this?
My perspective is when we've mentioned this in the past, that a lot of times what comes down to the wire with portfolios and interviews is not often the way it looks. It's the words that are written there. And so I've looked at some of this in terms of like what's actually written here, how to like understand this. If I was intaking this, what do I find and see? And it is very well designed. It looks nice. It's consumable. It has some of the right attributes here. It is, for me, missing the hallmarks of what I would consider a product designer's portfolio, though. It's missing some of the underpinnings. Not the visual aspect. Not the visual aspect. It is missing maybe the insight of like connecting this to data and the process of understanding that data. No, I'm not saying you don't have those skills, right? I don't know. But as I'm reading some of these case studies, they're very narrative focused. And they're missing maybe more of like even this like increasing conversions by 25%. Like I want to look into here. I see this one, maybe this one's a little more business centric. But in a lot of these I'm missing, actually maybe it's just one I was looking at because this one might have more of it.
Yeah, this one's business focused. The other ones kind of are a little bit more trying to show like, hey, these are some of the other skills that I have for some of the range.
Yeah, but even here, getting down here, I'm missing more of the details of like that I would expect a product designer to be able to justify and talk about the different solutions, maybe the more full stack qualifications here. When we look at charts, and this is my own chart, right? So don't take this as gospel. But when we look at chart in terms of like the difference between someone who is like execution on stuff versus someone who is like maybe strategy, we see that strategy is often leaning towards business and execution is leaning away from business, right? And so, and especially in a team where you have distributed roles, a product person has to deal with a lot of strategy, a lot of decision making, versus even down to UX, they are making some strategy, but their strategy is not necessarily the whole business, it's just their users. And then even going down to like visual design, your strategy is more on the execution side to support the decisions that have already been made. As I'm looking at some of this, I just don't see the decision making, or at least the reason for some of this decision making, in the terms of phrases that I'm used to product designers presenting themselves. It looks very beautiful, though. I'm just not seeing that level of communication that would make me go like, yes, this person's a product designer. They own a business adjacent functionary role within design. And again, not saying this is not thought out or not like pretty, but if I was trying to identify gaps, I would probably say the copywriting here may not be supporting the title that you're looking for with a product designer role. That could be maybe a gap for you, is as you're looking for these conversation interviews, you have all the visual design of someone who would have lots of experience in here. Like, you don't come across as someone who's lacking experience or even lacking intentionality or maturity, but I'm not seeing the same things I would expect a product designer to communicate across some of these things. I'm saying a lot of the same words over and over again. I don't know if this is making any sense or where you would fall with this.
I kind of get what you mean in terms of how it's positioned, because one of the things is a lot of these so for these case studies itself, a lot of these tend to be ones where I've covered most of it, kind of like full stack itself. So I think maybe what I have to do is kind of show a little bit more of like, hey, these were the different versions that kind of broke down. This is why I made the decision. This is how the user testing had gone, and like show it like a little bit more visually, from not saying like, hey, like revamp my like layout, but from that, from more of like a product design perspective.
Yeah.
Is that fair to
Yeah.
say?
I mean, absolutely. In terms of like, are you solving the right questions? Right? Does this case study show that you're solving the correct question that a product designer would be asked to solve? And this is not to beat on that horse, but when I'm looking at even this, where I'm like, there's execution sides to things and there's strategy sides to things. If you look at like an engineering stack, right, you have like business / CTO. A lot of this is very strategy related. And as you kind of trickle that strategy down, some parts of engineering get more or less strategy, right? You have a backend engineer, has to do a lot of strategy, right? There's almost nothing visual to a backend engineer's work, but it's a ton of strategy making things hook up the right way. Front-end engineers, less strategy, more visual work. And I think it's probably where we see a lot of design engineers end up, is that they're doing a lot of visual design work that's not necessarily like based on a lot of strategy or even necessarily attached to like a lot of UX principles, but absolutely is centric on this like UI evolution and visual design here. As I'm looking across your website, the visual design is peak. This is peak visual design, I think, in a lot of ways, right? Lots of cool micro interactions, lots of cool things that are happening. At the same time, I'm just not seeing maybe the decision making that I would associate with a product designer. Like, a product designer does not need to have the greatest designed portfolio in the entire world. They can have very minimalistic portfolios and be very successful because there's an element of strategy that's underpinning their role, their expertise that people are looking for. And that is the problem. That is the question that a lot of these hiring managers are looking to solve, is does this person have the right strategy to approach our product? So it's possible that you have that experience. You might have even like the right stuff off the cuff in an interview, but I don't think your portfolio is representing it yet. Is that fair of me to call out for you?
It makes quite a lot of sense, especially with like the history, right? Because right now, one of the biggest reasons as to why I kind of want to go back into it is because I don't want it to be kind of 25 to 30% of my design, of like my day, like my workload. I'd rather have it be 70, 80, 90, and then have the last 10% for maybe like dealing with stakeholders. So I think I really just need to dial in on that for it, because one of the reasons as to why it's like this is because I'm just looking for, hey, what might show like a little bit more quality to better represent, or to kind of drown out the noise of like, hey, there's a little bit of a lack of the case studies on the typical product design sense, but I want them to feel that, hey, this person can make a really, really like great product or outline or prototype for this situation.
Maybe the catch-22, I mean, I'll push back on that, is I don't think a lot of these people are looking for people who can build good prototypes. I think they're looking for people who can solve problems with a reasonable level of strategy and process that they understand and feel confident in, especially in a world where AI is starting to really encapsulate a lot of the execution roles, right? You have all these roles that are very strategy focused, and you have execution roles. And AI is starting to encroach on the execution side of these roles, where now it's not about like, can a front end engineer center a div, but does a front end engineer know how to refactor code correctly? And so we're seeing these things shift. 7 the design industry is not done. I will ban you out of the server if you keep up conversation like that. That is reductive and not helpful.
I think it's growing. That's why I want to be back in.
Yeah, 100%. The design industry, however, like we have to be careful to define what exactly is design. Is design drawing a picture, or is design maybe a little bit more in terms of like a product world and a business world, centered and focused around like a holistic problem solving situation? So that's where we are.
Ebe, I don't know if we've
think one of the
provided
biggest things-
any actionability for you, but how are you feeling about all of this so far?
I think when I kind of go like in terms of like thinking about it objectively, it does make sense, right? Like it's the same problem that I'm also like mentioning in terms of like the generalist skill set, or how to highlight or how to better position myself there. But I think that with what it kind of is right now, I think I need to lean more on, if I want to go towards those sorts of roles, I need to lean more onto what I need to lean into more what they might expect from like a senior product design like portfolio, or what like Tim mentioned, like what sorts of things might be like expected in terms of decision making.
I like that thought process. There's the common joke: dress for the job you want, so then you show up looking like Batman. I think there's something to that. I think number one rule of marketing is that marketing is a battle of perception, not product. So build a perception that you want to tackle and you want to attack, and that will be the perception of Ebe.
Okay. And so in terms of like some of the motion design and how some of the things are, one thing that I also did worry about was going a little bit too crazy and just like, hey, look at me, I'm just doing this to do this. I know like it is a portfolio, so that's kind of like one of your places to do those sorts of things. But I tried to be a little bit more like minimal in terms of like, or be a little bit more tasteful with like how I was doing like interactions on it as well.
Yeah. I would just, again, I'd just be careful to recenter that. Like even in here at the top of this case study, Zune times design, you're setting this out as like, hey, we improved this thing, but this was about like maybe a UI or a visual spike, right? I was only designing the project, but I took over component logic, interactions, system logic directly in code. And so even this, starting this right here, if this is your thesis, this is not a product designer role. Although product designers might, product designers might do this, and especially in practice of like as me as a founding designer at the company I'm currently working with, I do this as well. But this is not like, I don't think this is a good lead here. This does not frame you on the core product requirements of like being able to do the product stuff really well. So, but when you get down here, right, I'm leading this, I'm like, people don't say things, but don't speak in filters. Nobody says it's like, this is a great insight. This is a huge human insight. If you care to explain this more, or if you can show how you validate this, or if you have if there's maybe like how our users were actually using this, if you have a way to explain the insights and the strategy more than you spend on the actual UI generation part of it. Okay, but I gotta stop. It's gonna go in it's gonna keep going in circles here. Quad, your portfolio, immaculate vibes, excellent looking. I think some of the intentions in terms of what you're targeting is maybe your biggest mismatch, but I would also be surprised if people turned you down because it looks like you have a lot of good stuff here. And I think that, once you align your target with what you're showing here, you'll find the synergy for our corporate people. You'll find the right synergy here and get to where you need to be. Thanks for sharing this stuff. This is very cool. Very, very cool. And some great little animations in here.
Thanks. I spent an inordinate amount of time on the feel one, and then also making it so light mode rises from the east and then sets in the west.
Very cool.
Sure. Can we how expensive is this chat if we spam this?
It's 4.0 mini.
Is it
It'll
so
tell you
that's
if it
like
runs out of tokens.
is it
It's
like
pretty cheap.
10%? Is it 10% per or like 10 cents per like 1,000 tokens per million tokens, I think? What is that?
Pretty much. It like I've been messing around with it for so long that like I'm only down like 30 cents. And like what I also did was I kind of pre-canned a little bit of like some of the thought process for some of like the main ones, like why senior IC or like different things like strongest case or portfolio versus day job. But like that one was also like to try and position myself for, hey, this guy kind of knows what to do in the sense of making something feel good for like AI native if I decide to go that area.
Oh no, the context window is so short. Oh,
All
well.
right, I'm fixing that right now.
I spammed it too much. It's fine. It's fine. What? Let's see. At least it has good arrow handling. Look at that. It's
Yeah,
pretty consistent.
I went through it.
Cool.
My friend
Very cool.
kept trying to pen test it for me.
I just asked it to tell me a secret about you, but it doesn't have any.
That's good.
No secrets. Ebe,
Okay.
appreciate hanging out with you.
All right, thanks. I appreciate the feedback. It also kind of like goes with how I was thinking a bit, but it also honestly it kind of also opens the question of, do I just want to work as like maybe like a product engineer or some sort of thing at a different like location, if that makes sense, because there's like a lot of things in there where it's like I also don't kind of want to give up, but like it does make sense where it would do craft, because like I do like that experimentation aspect of it a lot.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, let's take a really short stab at this. Just to clarify, when we talk about product in terms of like a role name, remember that product shares a lot of relationship with business
Mhm.
and with research. So this would be very much heavy on the strategy side. So if you're talking about like a product engineer, product engineering is probably going to have a very close relationship with someone like a CTO. Right? This is a execution is not sorry, not execution. It's like a strategy sort of like executive level role. Whereas craft often lives on how you do things. And so this is probably where craft is the highest degree. So craft often has this inverse relationship with certain parts of strategy, when strategy inside of a job market refers to business and business goals.
Okay. No, that it does make a lot of sense as well too. Um, I don't mean to take up more time, but I think like one of the other things I was thinking about was like, how nice would it be to just make an insane interaction and you have an A/B test and see just because you made it like so much smoother, that like conversion goes up kind of thing. So it's weird, but I also kind of think of it like in a little bit of like a U shape, if that makes sense, where it's like, okay, a design engineer can potentially just move the needle in that sense, or like UI UX can move the needle in that sense too.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, I mean, what you're talking about, if I had to define it, that's definitely 100% on this visual and UX side. I wouldn't call that product side though. So like if you're talking about I like refactored something or improved the implementation of something, and now we're going to A/B test, that falls directly into the realm of what I'd consider UI designers to do, and also UX designers to do, because that's directly on the user facing side of it. And that's a general region I would qualify that as. Whereas a product designer looks at maybe more, or the product side, not just product designers, but product side looks at maybe like it's like not like ethereal, but much more of like the funnel. And so like saying like this is a lever that we need to move as a business. And so if we go down the lever and down the chain, what can we move that sometimes overlaps with UI, right? Sometimes it overlaps with UI. Sometimes it is UX stuff. Sometimes it is like code stuff, right? There's just something much more holistic about what this is owning. And that means by definition that this becomes as you move up towards product design, you lose the ability to do like specialized UI, right? Like as a product designer, my goal may not afford me the ability to do things that a UI engineer or a UX designer might do because they have their own specialties. Whereas a product designer they share more ground up here in terms of like strategy and work and making some of those holistic decision-making parts.
All right. That makes sense. I will improve the positioning and also do a little bit of thinking about like, hey, like where on this and like the trade-offs of the different ones. But I'm going to probably, once I do that, I'll shoot out some enterprise applications and see what happens.
Love the idea.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate the
And
time.
also thanks to the warm words in the chat too.
All right, folks, looking at the clock, that will do it for Feedback Friday today. Don't leave quite yet. Tim and I are going to stick around. I think, Tim, we should start with a Q&A, and then Tim has some conversation about AI skills that he's wanting to talk about. If this is your first time here, we do this every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Note that the other video feed, that's the Q, also has all the details as well, if you're looking to like screen capture real fast or anything like that. Feel free, if you're looking to get your stuff reviewed, would heavily recommend you show up 15 or so minutes early just to make sure you're one of the first 6 or so on the list. We only usually get to about 5 or 6 a day, and today it looks like we capped at 5. So worked out. Tim, any last words for the folk before I end the YouTube stream and we move on to Q&A?
I think you're good to go.